What's cooking, Juventus fans? Welcome back to your old lady's favorite YouTube channel. It's interesting times that we are living in currently as Juventus fans. Not only the fans, but also the players, and of course the crazies have their pitchforks and their torches out, ready to go against Max Allegri. We got to talk about that. The Ultras have a word that they want to have you hear about how they feel about Leonardo Bonucci, as well as some of the other intricacies that are going on throughout this whole process. Stick with us. We'll fill you in. Ciao ragazzi, welcome back to the Bianconerizonechannel. My name is Justin Sofro, and today it is Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. Of course, I got your latest rundown of all things Juventus, all the news you care about each and every day. Before we get into this thing, do me a solid favor, smash that like button. I'm going to hold up a second, I'm going to give you your time. Smash that like button. Help us out with the algorithm. Feed that algorithm. You just got to hit like. Really helps us each and every day. Smash that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that bell icon to stay notified for all of our latest videos. Now, before we get into this, obviously the latest news, it's a little bit of a whirlwind that we're in right now. If we're honest, if you've been on the channel every day, it feels like we're in this, like, kind of a, I would just say you're just kind of floating around in purgatory. We are in football purgatory right now when it comes to Juventus. Will they, won't they? What are the management trying to do when it comes to Max Allegri? Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done quick. Are they going to do it? Are they going to be stuck and they're going to be tied to this coach who's going to hold them, I guess, hostage until the end of the season? Or, honestly, till the end of his contract, right? And then we have the frustrations. We have the players now that are the players and ex-players that are getting vocal, that are letting their feelings known, as well as obviously the fans. There's a lot of issues that we need to cover. We need to talk about this. Let's go ahead and get into it, though. But that's something to keep in mind throughout the coming weeks. And this is not going away anytime soon. Make sure you're subscribed. Join this channel. Consider joining the member squad too. We're in constant communication. Really cool community you get there. Let me go and throw that up there real quick for you guys. That way you can remember. And instead, if you want to do it, maybe join the member squad. There you go. You get a lot of benefits. Cheaper than a cup of coffee. You get loyalty badges. You get the emojis. But most importantly, the Discord members chat. With that, you get a lot of access to cool things. Like I said, constant communication. We're constantly talking about what is going on with Juventus. And of course, you'll have the latest update as soon as we have breaking news, whatever it happens, which way or the other. All right, let's get into it, though, the actual news for the day. And of course, let's go ahead and open up with this one. It's a quick hit one. Di Maria, we have an update on his situation moving forward following the red card that he received against Monza for throw them bows. Marco Guidi is confirming that a 2-game suspension to Di Maria. He will miss Bologna and Milan for Juventus. Not really surprising, though. There were reports that he could miss as many as 3 matches. Good that it's only 2, but again, a dumb move by a veteran player. Juve and Juve, the fans, the squad, cannot risk any more stupid moves by players, let alone stupid moves by the management. All right, let's continue on, though. We're unhappy with Allegri. What is going on with Allegri? Well, Tuno Sport's going to give you some bad news. Tuno Sport's going to say that firing Allegri, well, that could cost Juventus close to 80 million euros between the staff compensation and paying a new coach who should be probably an Italian or a foreign high profile. If you've been on the channel, we've talked about plenty of different options that are floated out there. I won't believe anything until we hear actual movement being made with Allegri. Before we start naming all the other successors, the potential successors, we need to decide if Allegri is going to go or not. And that's the big subject that needs to be taken care of. Because right now we're waiting on Agnelli, and Agnelli loves his boy Allegri. And he's willing, but it's going to be a long move before he finally commits to getting rid of him. Going on with that, though, we have reports out there by Gazzetta dello Sport who are saying that the phone call yesterday, Agnelli and Allegri talked. The president has personally reassured the coach, but patience has its limits. So basically, you're saying you're not as safe as you used to be, but you're still pretty safe. You're still pretty safe for now, mainly because of financial constraints, right? It goes on to say, though, that Allegri is still convinced that the Scudetto is still possible for his Juventus, which to me is almost laughable at this point. I mean, I understand you've been in bigger holes last season, but right now you've won 2 matches, 2 Serie A matches so far. That's where you're sitting. 2 out of 9 games played, you have won. It's absolutely abysmal. It's ridiculous. We've ranted enough on this channel. Let's move through this. I mean, if you ask me, you're done, son. It's time to move forward and look at what we can do to salve this ship. What can we do to save it, right? All right. We move on, though. It's not just the fans. It's not just the management. It's not just Pavel Nedved. It's also the players and former players of Max Allegri who are not fond of him, that are pretty much anti-Allegri. Let's start off with comments made by Matthias Delict. We'll go to Denis Zakaria after this one. But Matthias Delict opened up, giving his comments basically about the situation at Juventus and the situation that he's in now. He says, I think I made a step forward in terms of squad quality. Juve is a great team with fantastic players, and I had a fantastic time there. But Bayern Munich has the ambition to win the Champions League, and I felt this ambition was less present at Juve. I'm trying to see the best way to go about this. I know this is going to be everybody's opportunity. Let's be clear. I do want to say this, as I know this channel we take shots, or we get the stigma that we're negative, right? That we are the negative people. I'm sorry. It's reality check Juventus sports talk. That's what we do here, right? It may come off as negative, but that's because negative bleep's happening, right? My personal opinion on this, though, is that this is going to be an opportunity for a lot of stones to be thrown. A lot of people in glass houses are going to start throwing stones. And that's where you get with Matthias Delict, and you're going to get with some other people who are going to see this as an opportune time to go against Juventus, to try to hurt Juventus even more. So make sure you're being clear as Juventus fans. We're being negative, but we're being negative because we want better for the club. There's going to be a lot of people that are just going to try to take shots at Juventus to take shots at Juventus, and it's personal, right? Okay, so he says that. He says, and I get it. Bayern Munich may be a little bit more committed. Obviously, they've won a Champions League recently, so I can't really fault him there. But at the same time, it's never good when a former player basically doubts Juventus's ambition. I mean, I talked about this, obviously, and I know I doubted the ambition. I said it during the Mercado, saying it lacks ambition when it comes to the moves that were made. So these are just more and more statistics, more things piling up. They're just showing, there may be some truth there, though people are going to take their shots. All right, we continue on. Denis Zakaria, obviously a player that Max Allegri requested, a player that Max Allegri wanted to come to Juventus when they purchased him in January. This was one of his guys that he personally requested. It's never good when these comments are being made, but he says, I believe I will be happier in England than in Turin. Maybe Juve's playing style wasn't for me. The team sat back a lot and I didn't have much space. I am a player who needs a lot of space for my runs. Maybe this will suit me better in England. Again, shots being taken. This one's a bit more harsh, I would say, just because Delict was the guy who was here before. This is a guy that was brought in for Max Allegri, and this is his personal player, and that's what that's what we're looking at. So, harsh commentary by Zakaria. All right. Speaking of other players that could be potentially negative in this situation, we got to talk about, obviously, the big purchase that Juventus had back in January. What is this? How does this bode for Vlahovic in his future? Well, Corriere dello Sport is putting out the idea. And again, like I said, keep in mind in the back of your head as I'm talking about these news stories that people are ready to throw stones. People are ready to take their shot. Like I said, we talk about the media being anti-Juve. But at the same time, when you're a Juventus fan, you realize shit's going down. Things not great for the club right now. They're making poor decisions too. So be fair with our judgments, the way we come about Juventus, but at the same time, be understanding that there are people that are going to take their opportune time to take shots. Corriere dello Sport says the Vlahovic case, a crisis now. The crisis of Juventus could be put at risk an investment of 80 million euros for the player. The squad doesn't provide him any assists, and Dusan is becoming more dour and angrier. So just saying the potential that actually Dusan Vlahovic could leave the club. And there is potential that could happen. If for some reason Juve are not able to come up with money, you're losing out on Champions League money, you're losing out potentially on top 4 money, and going to the Champions League next season, and no wins in the Champions League, that's a lot of money that you're losing out on, and you don't want to risk losing a player like Dusan Vlahovic. Something to keep in mind, though again, people are going to take their shots. Let's continue on, though, and let's talk about a shot that could justifiably be made against Juventus, but this should not surprise a lot of you. We've talked about the criticisms of the club recently in the last, 4 or 5 plus years. Transfer News Live put out a statistic, not just about Juventus, but covering overall the clubs that overspend when it comes to their moves in their mercados. Clubs that overpay the most for their players compared to their real market value. Number 1, Manchester United, obviously they got money and they're willing to spend it. You know, they got obviously the moves that they have made recently. Bruno Fernandes, of course, you have Cristiano Ronaldo, the money they put into him at 238 million euros, overpaying. And number 2 is our club, our old lady, Juventus, at over 234 million euros over value. And this shouldn't come as a surprise to many of us. Obviously, we talk about this. We talk about the complaint of lost money and bad investments and bad players. Obviously, we talk about Ronaldo. We talk about De Ligt, the money that was spent on him, money that we probably should have gotten more for him when we sold him, as well as other players, more useless players. I know people don't like when I say this, useless players that we end up having and we have to get rid of. Aaron Ramsey, yada, yada, so on and so forth. Other teams that are listed in there of note, obviously, number 3, PSG at 161 million euros. Now, this is one that doesn't sit very well with me that they're number 3 and Juve are number 2, especially given the quality of talent that they're getting, because PSG has PSG money. When I mean by that, the oil money, right? Spending oil money. And my issue with that is they're spending that oil money and they have the money to throw around. Juve don't nearly have the amount of money to throw around, and they're landing. They're landing Donnarumma, Messi. They have Mbappe. All the Neymar, all the players that they have and have had quality over Juventus. And it's a bit frustrating to see that they're actually spending less for the quality that they have. Obviously, probably more financially total because those players are more value, but at the same time, overspending less than Juve are, and that's a bit abysmal. The other teams, Aston Villa and of course Real Madrid. A little bit surprised not to see a Manchester City. Maybe they'll work their way up there. We'll see how much they spend, though. It seems that they make pretty good investments so far. Something to keep in mind. All right. Another news story I wanted to get out there before we get to the main headline, of course, talking about what the Ultras had to say about Juventus. Well, we have to talk about this. This is a news story, just real quick, that's thrown out there by Il Giornale. The reason I say we have to talk about this, just take it with a grain of salt. This is what I'm saying. They report that Juventus will be looking for a new sporting director. The Bianconeri would have contacted Petracci. Juventus would be looking for a person to implement the management organization chart. Petracci is a very good friend of Antonio Conte, and his arrival could relaunch the rumors of a possible return of the Salentino coach with the Bianconeri. Just real quick. And here's what I'm saying. I'm not really don't take this for face value. Don't put a lot of investment into this idea. Any of this news that's being floated out there. I personally think it's kind of a crap idea. But what I'm saying is these are the opportunities. Blood in the water. These are the opportunities that people are going to use Juventus, use the old lady to try to float out these stories. And I would love to see it. I would be honest. When I say I would love to see it, it's right. It's crazy because a year and a half ago, never would have thought I'd say this. I would actually love to see Antonio Conte come back to the club. But the idea of all these other moves being made to try to get him back to the club, I'm not buying it. I'm not believing it. We'll see if it ever happens. I'm doubtful. Though I'd be open to it. But I'm doubtful. This just sounds like crap journalism that's being thrown out there. We'll see. That's just my personal opinion. Let me know your thoughts. Okay. Let's get into the main story of the day. And I guess to me, it just seems that... you call them super fans? Do you want to call them terrorists sometimes? To be honest, when it comes to ultras, when it comes to the fans that identify themselves as ultras, and if there are ultras here that are viewers of the channel, let me know, because I live in the United States of America, right? There's a lot of ideas and stigmas that are thrown out there when it comes to ultras. Napoli ultras, we've seen them in the past. We've seen the horrid things that they have said and that they've written on the club. And they always are pretty egregious in their actions, but at the same time, they're polarizing. That's the one thing I can say. And a player who is in their target right now, who is right in the eye line of these ultras, is a polarizing player himself. And that is, of course, Leonardo Bonucci. They wanted to take a shot at him, talk about him. They said they're giving comments on, obviously, the last couple of matches. When you have Monza there at the end, when he's forcing the other, as the team captain, to come up there to force him out in front of the other, in front of the fans that are there, the supporters, the ultras that may be there, and basically teary-eyed crying, sad, appreciation, apologizing. It's a mess. It's absolutely a mess. It's kind of embarrassing, if we're being honest. So we'll get into this. I want to hear your own thoughts and opinions on this. But the ultras put out a poignant statement, a visceral statement. I don't know what you want to say, but they put a statement out there about Leonardo Bonucci and just overall the status of Juventus. Here it is. I'll go ahead and read it out right now. Actually, that's number 2. Let's read number 1. First up, they say, we are witnessing scenes that we do not understand, conceived by someone who stands as a leader but acts as a sacrificial victim. Bonucci has never been a leader and never will be. Neither at Inter, Treviso, Pisa, Bari, Milan, nor Juve, like him and the others who support him. Hierarchical scales are there for a reason. A good soldier is not necessarily a good leader. Bringing professional players as a sacrificial victim to watch the curva as they boo and insult them. The result can only be formation of a weak group full of negativity and victimhood. The role of the ultras, the real ones, is to support the team as long as possible. For complaints and apologies, there is time at the end of the season. And if you, some players, were to be the creators of this filth, you should be ashamed. If instead you were doing it out of ignorance or personal purposes, stop and know that you were wrong. If we had something to tell you, we would have done it at the Cantanasa and looking you in the eye, like we have always done in the past. Not on the field, in front of the opponents with boos and insults, making us and you look ridiculous and weak. Whoever wears the Juventus shirt lowers his head only in front of his people and not in front of everyone, media included. They go on to say, the looks from the pitch to the curva are enough. We have always understood, knowing that you would react. And finally, don't take the blame that only the incompetent leaders of the president have, and to which they owe an answer. Always and only for the love of the shirt. I'll be honest. After actually hearing the commentary made by the Ultras, I think this is a different band of Ultras than maybe the fans you see out there, throwing slurs, throwing insults, throwing the attacks. I think that's what they're saying. I think this is actually a good message, and I'll actually give these guys kind of credit. Overall, the message is good. Because overall, the message is, obviously, it's critical of Bonucci. It is very critical of Bonucci, though Bonucci, let's be honest, he's very deserving of a lot of criticism that he has and will continue to receive as long as he's at Juventus, and honestly, past his retirement from Juventus. Though, at the same time, I would say this, with Giorgio Chiellini and his retirement, leaving Juventus, going on to the MLS, no matter who stepped in this role, was going to be fighting an uphill battle, but it's even more difficult when your name is Leonardo Bonucci. I really like the sentiment overall, though, at the end. Really basically just saying, what are you doing practically leading the lambs to slaughter? Which is basically what it is. It does seem that way. They're already beaten. They're already broken. The players are in a state of discourse right now. What are you doing putting them out there in that kind of situation, especially at Monza when people are pissed at you and all you're going to get is vitriol? And I get it. That's fine. I do get that line of thinking. I'm still a little bit torn in the way I overall think about the actual players, how much I put on them. Because I think right now, there's actually been a little bit of a disconnect for me personally from the way that I looked at the players. And before it used to just be, I was, taking shots at players, saying that it was their fault, that these players were not good enough, and that these players are crap. Well, one thing that we've seen recently is that a lot of these players, that may not be that great, that I still don't put a lot of stock in, but you see guys like Kulusevski. You see guys go to other clubs and be successful and work out. And at some point, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say that maybe it's not the players, maybe it's you. And when I'm saying that, I'm talking about Max Allegri. Maybe it's Allegri. Maybe it's the management who put him in this position. Maybe it's all the people that have set them up to fail to begin with. And maybe it's your all's turn to make a decision, be good to the fans, be good to the players, and do what's best for this club moving forward. My personal opinion, again, I know this is a daily news show. At this point, I think it's time to move on from Max Allegri, and it's time to find a route that's better for the club. What that route is, we'll talk about it each and every day as we decide it and as we debate it. But of course, Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below if you haven't already. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about what the Ultras had to say? What do you think about Ultras in general? Do you think the stigma is correct? Do you think that maybe the stigma is a little bit wrong, and maybe we don't need to go as harsh on them as we are, and there's just some bad apples that are causing that stigma to be out there? Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell icon to stay notified for all of our latest videos. You can follow me at Justin Sofro on Twitter, and of course you can follow Bianconerizone, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next time. Forza Juve, Forza Bianconeri. Say hello to your old lady for me.